Hello and welcome to Mackin with Miles. Now here's your host, Miles V.
Hey everybody, welcome to a new episode of Mackin with Miles. Now this is going to be different from what you guys are used to because of some copyright strikes I found myself getting this week. So Mackin with Miles, the episode filled with music will no longer play on my podcast on Anchor, or Apple, Google, wherever you guys listen to Mackin with Miles. If you're not listening to Mackin with Miles on freshestfm.com, you're not going to be able to hear the music. You know, the only reason why the music is a part of the show is because it's an actual radio programming. It's an actual radio show. And, you know, for a long time I was playing the music on here, but, you know, podcast got a lot more popular since I started, and now, you know, the rules are changing. And I already see where things are going compared to how things were when YouTube started monetizing their videos, and then we wasn't really allowed to start playing music on YouTube videos anymore. So the same is starting to happen in podcasts. So if you guys want to hear my commentary with the music, you're going to have to go to freshestfm.com. That's freshestfm.com. And my show plays every Sunday at 4 p.m. Throughout the week, they do have repeats playing. I don't remember the time, but there is a schedule on the website. But if you want to hear the brand new episodes with the music, with the playlist, you're going to have to go to freshestfm.com. From now on, when you listen to the show on my podcast, it'll just be the audio commentary. If you look for the previous 60 episodes, they won't be found now because I had to take a deck of the music. And they will be posted soon. I'm going to edit some excerpts and just edit the audio separately without the music. But for now, this is what the show is going to sound like. I'm sorry for y'all who do enjoy the music on this show, but, you know, to continue listen to it, you're going to have to listen to it on freshestfm.com. And we're back to Mackin with Miles. So, you know, Corona is still here. The protests are still going on. You know, the election is coming up. But I feel like these last couple of weeks, that's all we've been focusing on. So I don't want to do another week of just, you know, dealing with the headlines. You know, the headlines can be so draining. It's just like every day there's something else to be upset about. It's another thing to be, you know, up in arms about. And I'm just like, you know what, today we just need a Sunday where we could just chill and relax for a change, you know. Because it's just like every time you turn on the news, you just get upset about something. Like the other day, I turned on the news. And I saw that ICE were getting ready to, you know, take people out of the U.S., you know, immigrants out of the U.S. because their school is no longer going to be in person. They got to start doing school online. They're like, well, if you guys are not going to school here literally and just going to do it online, you might as well just go back to your country. And you know, that's I think that's pretty messed up. I think there's something completely wrong with that. I swear, you know, I love being America. I love being American. I love living in America. But there's some things we do need to fix in this country. Like it's just like things are just so weird here, and this is just a weird time that we're living in because, you know, this is supposed to be the best time of our lives. It's 2020, but here we are. We're still, you know, seeing the worst of the worst. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, like the way I look at it, I'm watching a reboot of old stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, seeing the same thing that we've been seeing for years, just done in HD cameras and HD quality, you know, in modern terms. And it's just like, you would think that things would be different now, but, you know, like, you know, progress, it's not a one-day thing, you know. It does take time. And, you know, I want to shout out to everybody who's out there in the streets trying to make a difference every day, whether it's within their community, whether it's in the state, whether it's in the country. You know, shout out to everybody who's trying to make a difference, because without you guys, the world would just be pure madness, in my opinion. And we're back to Mackin with Miles. So, I know you guys have been seeing all this stuff about Will and Jada and August on social media. It's hard not to see it. It shows up on every social media. I've been on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, no matter where I went. I found it. So, you know, I saw that Jada tweeted, you know, it's time to bring herself to the red table. And I was, ooh, this is gonna be juicy. I'm ready for the tea. I want to hear this. And I recently got me an Apple TV box. That's very similar to your Kindle. Not your Kindle. What am I talking about? Your Amazon Fire. Your what do you call it? What's the other one? Your Roku device. There's all these different devices. I got me an Apple one recently, and I prefer the Apple one compared to the other two. I mean, I've tried them all, and I'm an Apple head, so of course I'm gonna like the Apple one. But that's besides the point. It's not a commercial for Apple. They have a Facebook Watch app on the Apple TV device, and I was like, all right, one of these days I'm gonna find a use for this app, because it's like, what am I gonna watch on Facebook on my TV? Like, there's nothing. So when I heard that they're doing the Red Table Talk with just Will and Jada to discuss the recent headlines, I'm like, ooh, I finally got something I could watch on my TV from Facebook. Finally. So I'm like, all right, I'm tuning into this. I'm tuning in. And I didn't know when the episode was going to drop, but then I started seeing all these memes about entanglement. I'm starting to see pictures of Will looking really, really drained. And I'm like, okay, I got the video must be up. Let me go look. And then the video, of course, was up. And I watched it. And did it clarify some things? Yeah, just a little bit. Did they address the rumors of them being in an open relationship? No. Did they acknowledge that they were separated at a time? Yes. And did they call it an affair? Jada called it an entanglement. And a lot of y'all haven't been in an entanglement, and it shows. I'm just saying, it was eye-opening, to say the least. You know what I mean? Like, it's funny when, you experience things and you think you're the only one in the world that experience certain things, and then, then you start seeing some of your celebrities come out and say, no, we've been through the same stuff too, So, if anything, it humanized them and made them seem, like this is normal stuff that people go through. The only thing that, I guess that made me feel weird about the whole thing is when they did the riff of Bad Boys, when it was, we ride together, we die together, and they said bad marriage for life. I was like, oh, I don't know. I feel that one hurt a little bit. I'm not even in that marriage, and that one just hurt. I don't know. That's just me. But the interview's out, guys, if y'all want to check it out. But that made me realize I don't want to be in no entanglement anytime soon. And we're back to Mackin With Miles. So, I've been going through some changes lately, y'all. I've been detoxing, try to eat right, have a better sleeping pattern. Also, I could master my craft and, work way more productively than I've been doing, because I'm aging. I just turned 30 this year, and I realized, I'm not as young as I used to be, so I don't bounce back as quick as I used to before. So I'm like, okay, I need to start taking care of myself so I can bounce back a lot faster than I have been, because lately I've just been burning out a lot faster. And what I realized, a lot of it is not just about changing your routine or your diet, but it's also changing your mentality. You literally have to rewire your brain, and it's not easy. I can tell you that. Like, I used to be a heavy pothead. Heavy. And I don't smoke as much anymore, as much as I used to. And, once I started changing my diet and, started drinking, less fruit juice, like stuff, corn syrup and stuff, and start actually drinking, veggies and fruits from the actual source. Like, I would have cold pressed ginger, apple, carrots in the morning. Almost every day I have ginger, carrot, apple now. And when I say I can literally feel the brain cells just being re-stimulated and like trying to grow back from the damages from smoking so much, and it's just like, oh my, is that a great feeling? But you can feel that your body's putting in work trying to rebuild itself, and it's just like every time I continue to smoke, I'm just it becomes a battle in my body of just trying to get everything back together. Like, hey man, we're trying to rebuild things here, and you keep bulldozing it down, and it's like, okay, it's time to really work on your brain chemistry, really change your routine, because your brain has a lot of work to do. You don't force yourself to breathe. You just breathe. You know what I mean? When you get a scar, your body heals on its own. You don't have to think about it. It just takes its time, So, you got to let your brain, or at least, help your brain reshape and rewire itself, give it the birth of new neurons, And one of the key aspects of that is neuroplasticity, or neural pruning, which means that any neuron that isn't fired and wired together into a network will likely be extinguished. So it's like you have to improve your intelligence, And we all have different our abilities to solve problems, whether it's learning, thinking, logically understanding, acquiring new knowledge, integrating ideas, attaining goals, But it's when we change our belief and learn something new or become mindful in our new habits and reactions, to unpleasant emotions or, stuff that we just don't want to deal with, we actually alter the neurochemistry and the structure of our brain. Intelligence is always work in progress, so you are never too late to add to what you already know. Now, we don't have all the time in the world to try to study and do this and everything, And to be honest, you don't have to learn everything in hours, days, or months. You should just always focus on progressing, getting a little bit of progress. The simplest, most direct way to be smart is to keep building deep knowledge about things that you care about. Building knowledge of an area improves your memory, your thinking, and decisions about that topic. And look, I know a lot of people don't like to read anymore. We're in a social media age where everybody likes the information fast, quick, digestible, in and out. But the one thing most people seem to agree on is that reading is near the core of how you change your mind and yourself. So don't get in the way of your own learning. Most people don't really think about, how they learn. And the world is changing fast and new ideas pop up every day, and incorporating them into your life will keep you engaged and relevant. It pays to crave and keep an open mind. Incredibly smart people aren't always born that way, but rather are constantly working to improve their intelligence. Now, like I said, guys, it's not easy, because you got to try new things. You got to change your routine. You're going to have to expose yourself to different worldviews. You got to, reflect some more. You have to be honest with yourself. You got to be committed to this because this is a lifelong journey, And you really got to really take your time and, restructure your life, basically, because we all get ourselves into a routine. We start figuring out how we like things, how we want to keep doing things, and once our body gets accustomed to that, our mind get accustomed to that, it doesn't want to change. It's like, all right, at 3 o'clock we do this, at 4 o'clock we do this, you know what I mean? So it's like every day now you have to restructure that routine, like you gotta not make that phone call you would make when you're usually in that situation. You can't go to that place that you usually go to when you're in that mindset. You have to literally sit yourself down and be like, okay, I'm going to do things different today. Just today. Just try to get by that one day. I'm like, okay, today I'm not going to do X, Y, Z. And you focusing on doing something new or, bettering yourself in something that you've been working on. And you have to just keep doing that as much as you can until you build a habit. And it's not going to be easy. Some habits takes, 3 months to build. Sometimes it takes 6. Sometimes it takes 9 months. It's not going to be overnight that you'll be able to, see the person that you are in your head, But if you keep trying, you keep working towards it, you'll get there. And we're back to Mackin With Miles. So, it is summertime. Summertime. And, we're still in the age of Corona. So, it's not looking like a great summer right now. I'm already telling myself, like, summer's canceled for me. I'm not even thinking about barbecues. I'm not thinking about parties. I'm not thinking about going to the beach. I'm not thinking about traveling. I'm not going to go see any summer blockbusters. I'm just going to stay home, go to work on my movies, work on my products, and just do that because it's not safe yet. It's not. But a lot of people disagree. They're like, no, I'm coming out. I'm not going to let my summer pass by. I'm not going to sit here and not enjoy my summer. I'm supposed to just go home and go to work and that's it. Well, I guess. But if you don't want to do that, well, I'm not going to tell you you can. I'm not your boss. But, if you want to survive another year, it would be wise. But, some people just ain't thinking about that. They're like, nah, I'm going to brunch. I'm going out. I'm going to go party. I want to go enjoy my life. Like, all right. So I'm going to give you guys some tips on how to survive this summer during Corona. So one thing I've read a lot is the industry watchers suggesting people should, thinking close to home, because once lockdown was lifted, everybody is trying to go out. Everybody's being out there, and only a few people are going to be cautious about that second wave, because there's going to be a second wave. There's what do you call it? People popping. There's cases popping up every day now. I remember reading that it may go up to 100,000 a day soon of just cases popping up. So, traveling closer to home may be ideal. Yeah, I don't want to say, travel to this state or that state because it's close by. I'm staying in New York. I'm not leaving New York for nothing this year. I'm sorry. That's like, aliens will have to come to attack New York for me to leave New York. But, if you're going to travel, make sure you stay close. And just know that you got to take a lot of precaution if you're taking plane or public transportation. If you're going to travel, this would be the time to have an RV. I think that would be pretty smart. This is probably the best time to have an RV, so you could stay in your vehicle, your property the whole time. And there's some nice RVs out there now. I'm seeing some real nice ones. So, I don't know if you have the bread for it, but if I was y'all, invest into one of those, And when you're in your RV, look for wide open outside spaces. Driving to wide open spaces like the Grand Canyon, it's probably going to be really popular this year because, it's outdoors and, you can spread around. You just got to maintain your distance, In the U.S., almost half the states are reopening, and a lot of people are trying to social distance, and, they're trying to teach people how to social distance. But, I think it's pretty safe to say that no matter where you go, there will be people, Hotels are gearing up for road trippers, Some hotels are open, not all. But, they're doing the best they can to make sure that they can reopen. And, they're putting social distancing in their dining rooms, hand sanitizers throughout the property, masks for the staff, and, self-opening doors, So, as a hotel guest, you'll start seeing more and more self-check-in and mobile key room entries, so you guys don't have to share keys. So Axe Hotel, if they have that option where you can download an app to open your door, so you don't have to use a hotel key or anything like that. You pretty much you just gotta be paying attention. Is if I go to your property, what will you do to keep me safe? Because that's where we're at right now. We got to be able to understand that. We put our life in some of these corporations' hands, these businesses' hands. We're going to these venues. We're going to these places. We're putting our life in their hands. So, you got to be able to find out, what are they doing to keep you safe? People should stay grounded right now. Like I said, I wouldn't be flying around right now. Some people do fly, not me. I'm not doing that. But, I think this is the time you want to stay grounded. I don't think this would be wise to travel to another country, especially if things get locked down again. You don't want to be locked down in a different country. You could. Not to say you can't. Not to say you won't survive. I'm just saying, do you really want to, though? During a pandemic, anything can happen. I don't know. I've seen one too many horror movies, and the last thing I want to do would be far from home during a pandemic. That's just me. Well, that was this episode of Mackin With Miles. I know it's different without the music, but hey guys, this is what the show is going to have to be for now. Unless you listen to it on freshestfm.com, the freshest place for music. But it's the only place you'll be able to hear Mackin With Miles with music. But tune in next week for more. It's basically just becoming a regular podcast now. It's not a radio show anymore on Anchor, Apple, Google, wherever you listen to the show. You know, if you listen to the app on Freshest FM, you listen to the radio show. But if you're listening to it on the podcast, you'll just be hearing the podcast, which I won't be surprised if that's all y'all want to hear anyway, because I just want to listen to the radio. I could just turn on the radio. But until next time, much love, God bless, 2 pieces of chicken grease. I will see you later.